In exactly 25 days, 4 human beings will leave Earth's gravity for the first time in 54 years. The rocket is stacked. The crew is ready. But there's something NASA isn't talking about publicly, something that makes this mission fundamentally different from every Apollo flight you remember. Welcome back. On January 17th, in less than a week, the most powerful rocket ever built for human spaceflight will roll out to Launch Complex 39B at Kennedy Space Center. You know that pad. It's where Apollo 10 launched in 1969. It's where your generation watched Neil Armstrong's crew depart for the Sea of Tranquility. And now, after more than half a century of silence, that pad will come alive again. But here's what changed. When Apollo flew, we had one goal: get there first, plant the flag, come home. Artemis II has a different mission entirely, one that sounds simple on paper, but carries implications most people aren't grasping yet. This isn't a victory lap. This is a test flight for permanent human presence beyond Earth orbit, and the margin for error is razor thin. NASA announced the rollout schedule on January 9th. The Space Launch System, all 322 feet of it, will make the 4-mile journey from the Vehicle Assembly Building to the pad aboard Crawler Transporter 2. That journey takes 12 hours. You might remember the crawlers from Apollo, those massive tracked vehicles moving at 1 mile per hour. Same machines, same path, but everything else has changed. The rocket they're carrying generates 8.8 million pounds of thrust at liftoff, 15% more than Saturn V. The Orion spacecraft perched on top has life support systems designed for missions lasting weeks, not days. And the crew, Reid Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Canada's Jeremy Hansen, they're not just astronauts, they're test pilots for humanity's next chapter. But let's talk about what's really happening here, what NASA calls the critical path, and what that actually means. Once SLS reaches the pad, teams have roughly 2 weeks to conduct what's known as a wet dress rehearsal. That's not a practice ceremony. That's loading 700,000 gallons of cryogenic propellant into a rocket, running through the entire countdown sequence, and then safely draining everything without launching. It's the final systems check before you put human lives on top of controlled explosions. And here's the part that should make you pause. They're doing this because of what happened during Artemis I, the uncrewed test flight in November 2022. That mission succeeded. Yes, Orion circled the moon and came home. But when engineers examined the heat shield after splashdown, they found something unexpected: charring patterns that didn't match predictions, material loss in areas that should have remained intact. NASA spent 18 months investigating that heat shield, redesigning the re-entry profile, adjusting descent angles. That's why Artemis II slipped from 2024 to 2025 to now February 2026. And that's why this wet dress rehearsal matters more than any Apollo-era test you remember. The launch window opens February 6th, but here's where orbital mechanics gets complicated. Unlike Apollo, which could launch on multiple consecutive days, Artemis II has what NASA calls constrained opportunities. Roughly 1 week of possible launch dates, then 3 weeks of nothing, then another week opens up. Why? The trajectory Orion must follow to achieve its free return path around the moon, that figure-8 loop that uses lunar gravity to slingshot the crew back to Earth without additional burns, only aligns properly on specific days. Miss your window, and you wait. The Earth keeps spinning, the moon keeps orbiting, the geometry changes, you wait. What are they actually going to do up there? That's the question I see most often, and the answer reveals why this mission matters more than the spectacle suggests. Day 1 and 2, Earth orbit checkout. The crew will test every system, life support, navigation, communications, while still close enough to abort home quickly if something fails. Then comes translunar injection, the burn that breaks them free from Earth's gravity and sends them moonward. 4 days outbound. They'll travel 230,000 miles from Earth, farther than any human has ventured since December 1972. Gene Cernan and Harrison Schmitt were the last, Apollo 17, and they're both gone now. Everyone who walked on the moon either passed or in their 90s. This crew, they're carrying that legacy, but they're not repeating it. Here's what I want you to consider, and write your thoughts in the comments. When Apollo 8 first circled the moon in December 1968, Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, and Bill Anders saw Earthrise, that iconic photograph of our blue planet rising over the lunar horizon. That image changed how humanity saw itself: fragile, isolated, beautiful. What will Artemis II's crew see that we haven't imagined yet? They'll have cameras we couldn't dream of in 1968. 4K video, live streaming, angles Apollo never captured. They'll document Earth from perspectives that exist for maybe 30 minutes during the entire mission. Specific points in the trajectory where Earth, Moon, and Sun align in ways that only happen when you're on this particular free return path. NASA will broadcast it all, And I wonder, will it hit the same way? Will it change us again, or have we become too accustomed to space imagery to feel that sense of cosmic perspective? But there's a shadow over this mission that nobody's discussing in press conferences: China. In 2023, China announced its intention to land taikonauts on the moon by 2030. Not maybe, not if funding continues. By 2030, they're building the rockets, they're testing the landers, they're training the crews. And unlike NASA, which depends on annual congressional appropriations and political wins that shift every election, China's space program answers to a government with 50-year plans and the resources to execute them. Artemis II was supposed to launch in 2024. It didn't. Artemis III, the landing mission, was supposed to happen in 2025. Now we're looking at 2028, maybe later. Every delay gives China time to close the gap, and that matters because the moon isn't just symbolic anymore. Helium-3 for fusion energy, rare earth elements, strategic high ground for communications and observation. The nation that establishes permanent presence there first writes the rules for everyone else. Your generation won the space race in 1969. Will ours lose the space marathon in 2030? 25 days from now, assuming weather and technical readiness align, those 4 astronauts will climb into Orion and will watch the biggest rocket in current operation ignite its engines and climb toward the moon. It will be spectacular. It will be historic, and it will be the easy part. The hard part comes after: keeping the program funded, maintaining launch cadence, building the Gateway space station, developing the lunar landers, doing all of this consistently, year after year, administration after administration, until permanent presence becomes reality. Apollo ended because we stopped. We went 6 times, planted flags, collected rocks, and walked away. Artemis cannot end that way. This time we have to stay. This time we have to mean it. Share your memories in the comments. Where were you when Apollo 11 landed? Will you watch Artemis II launch? And do you think we'll actually stay this time, or are we just planting flags again? Until next time,